Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about how some American scholars have said that we should not underestimate the ruthlessness of the United States. In addition, after the India-Pakistan air battle, Trump wants to greatly enhance the performance of American fighter jets. In fact, China's military rise is already unstoppable. Earlier, during the India-Pakistan air battle, Pakistan used China's J-10C fighter jets and PL-15 long-range air-to-air missiles to shoot down 5 aircraft, including the French Rafale fighter. After seeing this news, US President Trump was surely deeply shocked. Many commentators believe that the India-Pakistan air battle marks another Deepseek moment for Chinese technology. It was just as shocking as when China's AI large model Deepseek was launched. Even The National Interest, a US magazine that has long been skeptical of China's military technology, has in a rare move acknowledged in its latest report that the achievements of the J-10CE have established undeniable credibility for China's air combat capabilities. In addition to China's 4.5 generation J-10CE fighter jet, the National Interest report goes further to mention developments regarding China's next generation, that is 6th generation, J-50 fighter jet. The J-50 completed its maiden flight at the end of last year and is currently undergoing test flights. It adopts a new blue mold 3D printing design, combined with a dual-thrust gear engine and the capability for sustained supersonic cruise, marking China's entry into the true 6th generation fighter development stage. The J-50's belly and side window designs are compatible with a variety of different types of munitions, giving it multi-role long-range strike potential and extremely high stealth performance. The National Interest pointed out that, by comparison, the American 6th generation fighter F-47 is still in the design phase, with even the prototype yet to take shape, making it impossible to compare with the J-50, which is already undergoing test flights. If the J-50 enters service as scheduled within the next few years, it is very likely that before the US military completes the development and deployment of its 6th generation fighter, the currently active F-35 and F-22 5th generation fighters will have no real advantage over China's 6th generation J-50. The National Interest bluntly stated that this gap could potentially lead to a reversal in the air superiority structure for the United States in the Taiwan Strait and Asia-Pacific region. The National Interest states that the US military currently relies on the F-22 and F-35 fighters to maintain its air superiority in the Asia-Pacific region, especially in response to China's strategic pressure around the South China Sea and Taiwan. However, if the J-50 possesses the claimed capabilities of stealth, long-range strike, and multi-role air superiority, the balance of air power around the Taiwan Strait may have to be completely restructured. Especially against the backdrop of Chinese military aircraft frequently circling Taiwan and continuously expanding their presence in the airspace, the pressure on Taiwan's air defense will undoubtedly become even more severe. Trump has witnessed the effectiveness of China's 4th generation fighter jets, the J-10C and J-10E, in the India-Pakistan air conflict. Even if the US military were to use the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II to engage, it might not necessarily be able to defeat China. So how will they deal with China when it rolls out its 6th generation fighter, the J-50? On May 15th, while visiting Qatar, Trump announced plans to upgrade the US's current fighter jet fleet, stating that the F-35 would undergo a major upgrade and be renamed the F-55, which would be equipped with twin engines. He also said that the F-22 would be upgraded to a Super F-22 fighter jet. His remarks immediately drew attention from the public. So how exactly does the US military plan to carry out these major upgrades to the two fighter jets? And what will happen to the previously announced F-47 6th generation fighter jet project? Currently, the most advanced US fighter jet is the F-35, codenamed Lightning II. Among military enthusiasts, its airframe is often jokingly referred to as the Fat Lightning. As an advanced 5th generation fighter jet, its single-engine design was intended to reduce the overall weight of the aircraft, decrease fuel consumption, extend its range, and increase its combat radius. It also simplifies engine maintenance and logistical support. However, Trump has repeatedly criticized it in the past, saying that a single-engine fighter only has one engine, which doesn't provide enough thrust, and if that engine fails, the plane is done for. He believes that twin-engine fighter jets have more advantages. Newsweek mentioned that equipping fighter jets with 2 engines can improve safety in the event of a malfunction and also provide greater thrust, making them better suited for high-altitude flight and carrying heavier missiles. However, twin-engine fighter jets are heavier and larger than single-engine ones, and their manufacturing and maintenance are also more expensive and complex. Trump said, "We will build an F-55 which will have twin engines. This will be a super upgrade to the F-35, and it will also be an entirely new development." He also said, "In the promising future, we will upgrade the F-22 as well. We will build a Super F-22, which will be a very modernized version." America's fifth-generation fighters, the F-22 and F-35, are both produced by Lockheed Martin. However, Lockheed Martin previously lost the bid for the sixth-generation fighter to Boeing, so Boeing will be developing the sixth-generation F-47 fighter jet. Last month, Lockheed Martin CEO Jim Taiclet told analysts that they are studying how to apply technologies originally developed for the sixth-generation fighter to the F-35, aiming to achieve 80% of the performance at half the cost. He said that basically, they want to turn the first version into a Ferrari. It seems that after failing to win the sixth-generation fighter contract, Lockheed Martin convinced Trump to let them simultaneously upgrade the fifth-generation fighter. When Trump encountered the India-Pakistan air battle in the Middle East and saw Chinese fighter jets steal the spotlight, he rolled out this plan to upgrade the fifth-generation fighter as a way to score some political points. It's worth noting that the code name for this upgraded fifth-generation fighter is F-55. Not only is its number higher than Boeing's sixth-generation F-47 fighter, but it's also higher than China's sixth-generation J-1500, which really fits Trump's desire to show off his strength. Maybe we'll have to wait until Boeing actually develops the sixth-generation F-47 fighter. Who knows how long that will take, so upgrading the fifth-generation fighter is simply a faster approach. However, this approach is definitely not easy. Just consider upgrading from the F-35, a single-engine fighter, to the F-55, a twin-engine version. The aircraft's structure would require major modifications, including redesigning key parts like the wings and the rear fuselage to accommodate the twin-engine layout. Not only must there be enough space to install the engines, but it's also essential to ensure that the aircraft's aerodynamic performance isn't compromised. Secondly, introducing twin engines will trigger a chain reaction affecting the aircraft's fuel, electrical, and flight control systems, all of which would need to be completely redesigned and tested. This would require a huge investment of both money and time, almost equivalent to developing an entirely new twin-engine fighter jet. Moreover, the F-35 already has numerous issues, including software bugs, engines that overheat and are prone to premature failure, and its inability to cruise at twice the speed of sound. It's only recommended to fly at subsonic speeds. The extension coating tends to fall off after startup. Lockheed Martin originally planned to fully exploit the Pentagon's obsession with pursuing the most advanced military technology, so the F-35 was packed with the latest technologies, allowing the manufacturer, Lockheed Martin, to charge exorbitant prices and reap greater profits. The continuous addition of new technologies to the F-35 stealth fighter has caused its weight to increase to 27 tons, far exceeding the original design specifications. In turn, Lockheed Martin had to increase the engine's thrust, but as a result, the engine couldn't keep up. After running for a short time, it would overheat, and after takeoff, the aircraft would experience severe vibrations. As a result, pilots would feel dizzy, nauseous, and have difficulty breathing, which could easily lead to a crash. With so many flaws, this aircraft was originally going to be discontinued, so how could it possibly be modified? Perhaps we can summarize from a few perspectives. First, among the fighter jets currently in service in China, the J-10C ranks at most fourth, yet it has already achieved such a dominant result against Western aircraft. The Deepseek moment for China's military industry has arrived. Second, Trump is a traditionalist and he is especially sensitive to the balance of military power among major countries. He was shocked by the India-Pakistan air battle and felt even more helpless after seeing footage of China test flying its sixth-generation J-50, which is why he urgently sought countermeasures. Third, with Boeing's sixth-generation fighter still a distant prospect, Lockheed Martin convinced Trump to simultaneously upgrade the fifth-generation fighter. But the F-35 already has so many flaws, how can it be upgraded? The US keeps going in circles, unable to break out of the dead end in new fighter jet development, and is now being overtaken by China right before its eyes. Everyone needs to understand the importance of military strength, because if the US had the military power to contain China, it wouldn't hesitate to go to war with China. Recently, a clip from a speech given 2 years ago by John Mearsheimer, a renowned American scholar of international politics, has been circulating on mainland Chinese social media. A famous book by John Mearsheimer, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics, was published in China in the early 1940s. It predicted that China's rise would challenge the United States and that China and the United States would go to war, which caused a sensation in the international political community at the time. In this clip, Mearsheimer says that the Chinese are very aware of what it means to be weak in the international system. They refer to it as a century of humiliation. This period lasted from the late 1840s to the late 1940s, during which China was extremely weak for over 100 years. Do you know what happened to China when it was so weak? At that time, other major powers in the international system, including the United States, took advantage of China's weakness, and China was bullied everywhere. So the Chinese are very clear that if you want to survive in the international system, you must become strong. Then he goes on to talk about Americans. What about them? Americans will not tolerate a peer competitor unless absolutely forced to. They will never allow China to dominate Asia. The United States is not just talking about containing China now, it is pursuing a strategy to push China back. Speaking of the United States, many people may not realize that it is a ruthless and merciless great power. You should never underestimate America's ruthlessness, even though it uses liberal rhetoric to cover up its harsh actions. But the United States is a very tough customer, and the Chinese have now realized this. In fact, this part of Mearsheimer's remarks was from a public speech in which he issued 3 major warnings to China. The first is that, for China, falling behind means getting beaten. China's more than 100 years of humiliation have already proven that whenever China's strength was even slightly lacking, or it was unable to resist the superior ships and guns of the West, the great powers, including the United States, would seize the opportunity to carve up and devour China. This is the harsh reality. Second, for the United States, it would rather be a lonely world hegemon than ever accept a partner capable of threatening its position. Therefore, the United States is a very difficult customer to deal with. The United States has only one goal: to turn China into its vassal state, to make China its subordinate, not its partner. On this point, China must remain clear-headed. Third, don't overestimate the United States. Although the US often talks about liberalism and loudly proclaims so-called democratic values, these are merely political rhetoric used to cover up America's brutal nature. When it comes to maintaining American hegemony, the US government will stop at nothing. Therefore, Mearsheimer warns China never to underestimate the US government's unscrupulous and underhanded tactics. Mearsheimer analyzes China-US relations from the perspective of American self-interest, and looking back 2 years later, especially after the developments following Trump's rise to power, it has become even more blatantly clear that Mearsheimer was right. To sum up, first, the Chinese people have a century-long memory of being bullied when they were weak, and they deeply understand that the international community is not an ideal world where everyone helps each other. Only by becoming bigger and stronger can one have the freedom not to be dismembered. Second, the United States is not a benevolent elder, and even American scholars warn us not to underestimate America's brutality. It will never tolerate China's rise. As for those who blindly worship the United States, such as China's so-called public intellectuals, if they are not simply naive, then they are just using this persona to make a living. Third, China's technological power has risen, and the moment for China's military industry to Deepseek has arrived. When Trump saw China's fighter jets, he got anxious and wanted to take both paths at once. He told Boeing to develop a 6th-generation fighter and Lockheed Martin to keep working on 5th-generation ones, unable to make up his mind. Does the United States really have that much money to go all out and build planes on such a large scale? The United States is no longer the same old money, tycoon-run country it was 80 years ago after World War II.